Hi everybody, this is Liz with 143 Handmade. Welcome. So this is just a random process video. I created these covers months ago. I'm not even sure when, but what I did to start with is I had some hardback books that the local school was discarding. And so I got a hold of a bunch of those, and some of them I've kept and they're in my personal library now, but a lot of them, really were ready to be retired and just taken apart. And so this is one book, but what I've done is I've decided to make it into two, and I created these covers just by piece sewing it, and then I do wash them after I make the initial cover. I wash it, and that's what gives it the frayed, that really good frayed look. And then I sew in the interior cover. I don't sew in the interior cover before I wash it, because if it falls apart, what's the point, and that sort of thing. So I want to make sure that the cover's good by washing it that first time. Then I go ahead and I sew on the interior cover, and then I wash it again to fray the interior cover. But how I've done these is I create a template with tissue paper. I just draw this onto tissue paper, and deciding however thick I want the binding, and then, extending it on out on the tissue paper. And then I sew all the pieces onto the tissue paper, as you can see, and then I wash it, and that's how I get it to be the right size. And so, but now what I'm going to do is I've decided that on this one, I could glue it this way, but that's kind of boring, and that leaves the cut edge exposed, to where this way, I kind of messed up when I cut it a little bit. You can see that that gets covered up, that whole raw edge, and you get to see the cover. And so, and also I feel like the glue glues better to the paper side a lot of times than it does the cover side, because they do seal the covers, so that way the covers don't, break down at the first little bit of water and whatnot. And so I like to put a good generous bead around the edge. And then while my glue is just dripping away and getting the air back into it, I just, with my finger, now if you don't like using your finger here, that's totally fine. Use an applicator, use a paintbrush, use whatever makes you comfy. I just found that every time I've tried to use a paintbrush or anything like that, I'm far messier than I am with just my finger. So this is actually the cleanest method for me. And as you can see, that glue is just dripping away there in the center, and I am not worried about it at all, because my next step is to go ahead and put a zigzag down the center and really spooge it up. And then I add another bit around this edge, because I really want to make sure this has got good adhesion. This is my most important bit of construction on one of these journal covers, and so it's very important to me. And so what I've done is I've really added all that glue, but I still have dry spots. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick my finger into that dry spot so I can hold it up. I like holding it up off of things when I'm doing the second coat, so that way I can really make sure I've got it all the way over to that edge, and I'm not worried about getting on anything. And in case you're wondering why I put the two coats on around that edge, is because the Fabrifix does dry fairly quickly. And so by adding that second coat, you're really making sure you've got good adhesion. And I actually don't quite have enough glue on here. It's just about creating a nice, even, thin layer of tacky glue. And you don't want it to be wet, but because then it's likely to soak through your fabric. But if you go ahead and you do this, and you wait for it to, a little bit of that wetness to go away, for it to dry just that little bit, till it gets to that tacky point like that. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it down very carefully, lining that edge, right, tucking that right in there, making sure all my strings that I want out are out. Anything like that. Got a rolled corner up here that I have to be careful with. There we go. And see, sometimes when it's like this, I will go ahead and stick it on there, and then I will put pressure up and slide that cover around. Okay, now real quick, I will take my hand and get rid of the bulk of that glue. That way now I can manipulate this cover on here however I need to, without worrying about my finger that was covered in glue. There we go, we're getting those threads out, those threads are out. Checking our little, you know, because I do piece it, there is ridges and whatnot from where the layers overlap, and so I'm just trying to make sure that those are, you know, decent. And you can peel it up if you know, if you do it fairly quickly, you know, you can peel it up and set it back down. And you have to also have to be aware of where you have dual layers, because see, like right here I have two layers. I have this fabric that is sewn in, and I've got a sew line right here. You guys might not be able to see it, it is very faint, this pink on the denim, but I can in fact see a sew line right there. And so when I'm moving this fabric around, I'm like, wait, it's not adhering, it's not adhering. Well, this layer is adhered, but this layer is sewn to this one but not glued, so there is going to be movement. And it's those little things that you learn and you get a feel for as you do this. Let's see, there we go. And then I will just very carefully, oops, don't want to take off the whole lid, that could be very messy, huh? Get rid of some of this excess glue around the outside edge. And then just glue right here, right along this edge. And this one, it is through thinner fabric, so it is easier to get, you know, that bleed through. And so I tend to use a little bit less glue here, or I just don't worry about it and I go to town with my glue, and then I cover it up with another piece of trim or something like that. So yeah, put quite a bit of glue on this time. So it's tacky, somewhat wet. And we're just going to gently lay this down, because this, you know, this piece I think is just as much about decorative element as it is about function. But this is my own cover design. I haven't seen this out there. I mean, I'm sure other people have done it, but I don't know that there's another book artist doing this technique a lot right now. So, and you can tell that there is a loose edge here. I prefer to go ahead and just leave that loose. You know, that gives you options once you actually start constructing the journal. So, you know, that way you can tuck stuff under there if you want to. You can pull this back if you want to, you know, add more trim, trim it down, you know, whatever. It just gives you those options. So now on this one, same thing but different, because this one I'm gluing, you know, this way as opposed to the paper side. And I do have this here. Now I could leave it, you know, all doubled up like that. I totally could. But I am going to go ahead and trim it back. And so again, we just start with that, you know, layer of glue. And because this is the cover, not the paper, it's, you never know how it's going to sit. Like if this was a glossy cover, I would have taken my X-Acto knife and actually cut into it a little bit to allow good adhesion of the glue. You know, that way it gives the glue someplace to grab onto really, really well. This, as you can hear, it has texture to it. It's a very subtle texture, but it is still texture, and that is plenty for the glue to adhere to. And so just lots and lots of glue. There we go. Waiting for my glue bottle to finish. Oh, it's gonna do the thing where it's erupting. It has something to do with the pressures and whatnot, and humidity, and I don't know what. Are you done? Are you done? You know, like, sometimes we are at the mercy of our tools, right? So, yep, just lay another good layer down. Like I said, same but different. Just different because of the way that the wood works, you know, the material, or the board. I said this isn't wood, this is, you know, book board. I have actually made journals with wood covers, and I would love to do some more of those. Project for another time. But again, so we're just going to go ahead and stick this in here very carefully. This is not... There we go. It was not cooperating. Okay, and it just dropped out of my hand, so that's where it's going. And it looks good. You know, go ahead and double check the back. Yeah, that'll be fine. You know, here we go. And now we're going to glue down this little flappy like so. And have a new cover. So, and in just that few minutes, I have finished up these two project covers. So, thank you for giving me that motivation to do that. There we go. And just go ahead and fold this over. Oops, not folded funny. That's one of the cool things about the Fabrifix is that it does adhere really well, and it does adhere pretty fairly quickly, but you can go ahead and lift it off fairly easily. And it comes off of you that easily, that quickly. And now it's done. You know, I mean, and the rest of that will just work off as I'm crafting today. Let's see. Do you want to go ahead and pull this back? And trim it off right along the library pocket. Let's see, I wasn't even worried about getting it like super well, you know, or anything like that. I'm gonna go ahead and pull some of the stringies to make it look more used, you know, more like the rest of the cover. There we go. And there we go, just like that. We've got these two covers now finished, totally ready for pages. So, go ahead and go check out my coffee shop if you're interested. I have stuff like this over there, and digital papers, and all kinds of things. So, thank you so much. I can't tell you all how much I appreciate every single minute we spend hanging out together. I will see you again soon.